Puzzle games are an infinite genre. There is quite literally no end to the ideas for one-of-a-kind games and mechanics that developers can come up with. I have played so many of them, and I still haven't even scratched the surface of the unique games people have made. From classics like Picross and Sudoku to absolutely out-there modern takes like Bridge Constructor or The Signal State, everyone loves a good puzzle concept. Sony used to be the champions of that back before the era of the third-person over-the-shoulder gritty action game. They made stuff like Intelligent Cube, Loco Roco, Tumble, and more across every console from the PS1 to the Vita. They made so many that, well, a couple are bound to be forgotten after all this time. And today's video is about one that I stumbled across and fell in love with this year, made by the beloved and taken from this world far too soon Japan studio. On this fine day, we're talking about echochrome. And the game's two sequels, because I might as well kill three birds with one stone. Or maybe a less violent and slightly funnier metaphor that I haven't written. Echochrome was released in 2008 on the PSP and was later ported to PS3, developed by Japan Studio and published by SCE, Sony Computer Entertainment. The game's release is a bit odd, with the physical versions in Japan and Europe including 96 levels and all three gameplay modes, and the original European PSN version being identical to the physical, but there was later a digital-only version called echochrome Micro, which had all the levels but only the solo gameplay mode. In North America, we got screwed over, as the game only ever got a PSN release with 56 levels and solo only, until a later DLC was released that added the last 40 levels, bringing it to parity with the European echochrome Micro. This means the US never truly got a complete PSP version, nor any kind of physical release of the game. Thankfully for us, and for my brain, the PS3 version is the same across all regions. It was digital only and included 56 levels and the one mode, but with the perk of having a massive community-made content system. Speaking of community-made content, this game does in fact have a level editor in all versions. Here's me making a simple level in the PSP version of the game. The controls are a little hard to get your head around, which isn't that shocking for a PSP game, but honestly, that's enough introduction and explanation. Let's actually get into talking about the game itself. I'm going to be using mostly PS3 footage because it's way easier to capture and it's going to be significantly higher quality. The first thing that greets you when you go to open the game is the soundtrack, specifically the song Prime No. 5, a relaxed string piece. On a small tangent, the game has an incredible soundtrack produced by Hideki Sakamoto, who's probably best known for creating the main theme Lifelight from Smash Ultimate, but he's also worked on a ton of other game soundtracks, including Smash 4 remixes, 2 Pokemon Mystery Dungeon games, some of the Yakuza games, and way more. He's really talented, and there's a fascinating interview on Silicon Era with him, talking about working on echochrome. I'll link it below if you want to give it a read. Totally worth it. Okay, back from the tangent zone, let's actually start the game. Several minutes into this video. I feel like the first thing people will notice is the visuals, because they are quite striking. The game is exclusively monochrome, with white backgrounds and thick black lines on the stages and characters. It really is pretty unique. The title screen greets us with a simple attract mode showing off some gameplay and some text telling us to knock on the door. Pressing start or cross will play a door knocker sound effect, it's pretty cute, and the menu appears with a few basic options. Let's start with tutorial under etc. The game follows 5 laws, those being perspective traveling, where 2 distant platforms can be connected, perspective landing, where when you fall through a hole you'll land on the platform that appears to be straight below, perspective existence, where if you cover up a gap in platforms, they will function as one connected space. Perspective absence, where you can cover up objects in the stage to disable them, and perspective jump, which allows you to aim your landing after hitting a jump pad. All of these are used to traverse the levels by manipulating the appearance of the world, because as they say in the intro,
yes, in this world what you see becomes the truth.
The actual gameplay basically consists of rotating your view of the level to help your little doll friend reach every echo on the stage. The character will automatically waft forward and will fall through holes in the ground and bounce off of jump pads. Where you land after jumping or falling depends entirely on the 2D perspective of the camera. It's the same with walking over gaps or linking physically disparate spaces. It's all about perspective. Like a lot of puzzle games, it's hard to explain, which is why I've been showing footage from the tutorial, because it shows off each element and mechanic in isolation fairly well. The possibilities for puzzle design within these restrictions are nearly infinite. It's crazy just how many combinations of these 5 mechanics you can create. And hey, while we're browsing the menus before starting the game, let's check out the help section. This is just sort of a basic guide with some neat info, such as explaining that the character will always turn left when given a choice, explaining how the think and snap features work, which are important later, all the different modes you can play, and how to record and upload replays. Turns out, if you hook up a PlayStation Eye, it can actually record a face cam and add it to the video automatically, which is fascinating, although the video is really washed out. Here's a comparison between my phone recording the same shot. It also has built-in YouTube uploading, which doesn't work anymore for a lot of very obvious reasons. Anyways, back to the main menu. The cloud stuff obviously doesn't connect anymore, it just spins and buffers until you tell it to stop. I assume the servers were shut down years ago, but I can't find any info about a shutdown being announced, which sucks. Sony has this awful habit of releasing projects with network functionality and then just dropping it. It happened to Gravity Rush 2, it happened to Starblood Arena, it happened to Drive Club. Nothing is safe from Sony's wrath. Nintendo does this too, but not nearly as badly. Nintendo's MO is just to send out a game unfinished to die and then promising to fix it later. Sorry, where was I before I was driven mad by the modern games industry? Oh, right, echochrome. So, onto Atelier, the main level section. You get all 56 of the dev-made levels, levels from users, which is self-explanatory, and portfolio, which is where your custom levels are stored. So let's wrap this whole thing up before we move on to the next game. Echochrome is a beautiful and unique puzzler, on both the PSP and the PS3. The visuals are striking, the music is beautiful, and the puzzles are really well designed, and they can get really tough. Plus, the level editor and online sharing meant that back in the day you would never run out of content to play. Nowadays, since the servers are gone, the game is in a bit of a liminal state. But it's still worth checking out if you have a PS3 or PSP lying around and the know-how to acquire legal copies of this game. But hey, apparently it did well enough that Sony greenlit a PSP-only sequel 1 year later, in Japan, taking a new angle on the doll-based puzzle gameplay. Echoshift is a 2009 PSP game developed by Artoon Studios and is often considered a spin-off of echochrome, and I call those people cowards. This is absolutely a sequel in my opinion. The game is a 2D puzzle platformer, where every time the on-screen timer hits 0, a time bounce occurs and time rewinds. Your previous actions are then replayed as an echo. This echo then interacts with all the things you did on your previous run, allowing you to solve puzzles. It's, once again, a hard concept to explain well, but the gameplay shows it off pretty simply. You basically record actions and then replay them as separate versions of you. This can lead to some incredibly complex puzzles and some bad headaches. There are 3 modes in each stage you can play, Cast being the regular stage, Key, which changes the level up by locking the exit over the key you have to find, and Illusion, which allows you to freeze time for up to 3 seconds per loop, allowing for interesting speedrun strats. The game's visual style is similar to echochrome, but is still fairly distinct, adding a UI to the game and a splash of color in the backgrounds. I think it does enough to stand out on its own compared to the original, but not going too far that it lost what made the original so special. Echoshift had a very normal release compared to echochrome, thankfully. There was just one version of the game released across all regions, physically and digitally in Japan and Europe, and digital only in North America. The game also had DLC in all regions, specifically 7 downloadable levels from PSN you can access in the level select that I don't own and couldn't get working on my Vita. I don't really have a ton else to say about the game, other than that I really like it, and I'm just talking now so I can show more gameplay in the background. So, how's your day going? Yeah. Really? Yeah. Whoa. Alright, is that enough one-sided empty conversation? I just really wanted to show more footage of me playing, because this game is a lot of fun. Okay, I think that's enough. Let's move on to our final game in the series, back on the PlayStation 3, released 2 years later, and holding 1 Guinness World Record. Echochrome 2 is a 2011 puzzle game that specifically utilized the PlayStation Eye and Move controller, and was considered by reviewers of the time to be a flagship title that really showed off the value of PlayStation Move. Hey, editing Reyna from the future here. This is being recorded the day the video goes live, but this next segment you're about to see was recorded earlier today when my copy of echochrome 2 finally arrived after a month of waiting. I wanted to show the whole unboxing because it is really cool. Alright, so it's going to be a bit jarring when we cut back. Okay, I don't normally do voiceovers for this kind of thing, because they're just B-roll, but I have a factory-sealed copy of echochrome 2. Look at that, you can see the PlayStation seal still on it. I mean, this is incredible. It only took a month to get here after I ordered it, so it was way behind, but it has the original plate. I've never seen that, because I've never bought a new PlayStation 3 game. I've only ever bought new PS4 games, and they just have standard shrink wrap. So, let's carefully slice this open. Carefully slice this open, take 2. There we go. Oh my god. Wow. It really does. It's got the little, like... It's got the PlayStation logo written on the plastic. And then we've got the game. It's in... I mean, it's new. It's in phenomenally pristine condition. Let's crack this open. We've got, obviously, the game disc with its little design. This is very cute. Oh, no scratches. Absolutely gorgeous. And we've got the software manual. This is thick and it's full color. We've got... I don't know what this says, but I assume it's about registering for PSN account? Yeah, it is. Whoops. It's slippery. And, what is this? Sony accessories that go with PlayStation Move or something? Sorry, I don't know any Japanese, so you're gonna have to figure this one out for me. But hey, this might be good for the Move video that I'm working on. And the inside cover is all of the shadow art from the game. Wow. Wow, wow, wow. This is so much cooler than I would have imagined it. It's in such perfect condition. Okay, now back to your regularly scheduled video. They are correct. This absolutely deserves to be seen as one of the best PlayStation Move games, given how actually fun and content-rich it is. So, what exactly is this game about? Well, it's definitely distinct from the other 2 games in the series, being all about light and shadow, the Japanese title even translating to Light and Shadow Box. The doll this time exists only in the shadows, and you use your Move controller as a flashlight to cast shadows in a puzzle box. As with before, this is hard to explain, but I'll try my best. Basically, your Move controller acts as the in-game light source, casting a shadow on the back wall. The blocks in the stage are used to create shadows that your doll will traverse automatically. Holes will drop you down lower, and the spheres are used as jump pads and are also used to make the exit. To beat each level, you must place a circle over a 2-block tall pillar and get your doll through the door it creates. There are also other features such as archways, which are used to traverse through the shadows if 2 archways are connected. So, now that we've got the basics out of the way, the game gets way more complex. Each level is made up of an assortment of pieces that you line up with the light, and they sometimes form fun shadow shapes. These are called shadow art, and the positioning for the art can often give you a hint on how to solve the stage, and are just plain cute. There's stuff like a rabbit and a tortoise, a snake, and even a motorcycle. It's actually really impressive how these designs come through from what looks like a jumble of blocks. There's also 2 alternate modes for every stage, those being Echo and Paint. Echo is much like the original game, where you have to collect all the echoes to beat the stage, and Paint, where the dolls are covered in paint and color the blocks that cast the shadows they walk across. The goal is to paint 2/3 of all blocks on the stage to win. The game also had online sharing and scoreboards, but unsurprisingly they're long since shut down. When you were online, you could compare level times with friends, download new stages to play, and upload your own custom stages for others. Because that's right, this game has a level editor, just like the original. I tried to make a stage, but this stuff is way more complicated than the original, and I couldn't make a complete thing. The controls are really hard to get your head around, and you need a lot of forethought to design a stage that can be traversed properly with a working exit. I'm sure there's a lot of people who can make amazing stuff back in the day, but I am not one of them. Now let's talk about that Guinness World Record. Echochrome 2 holds the record for the longest video game soundtrack composition at 1 hour, 15 minutes, and 7 seconds. The soundtrack is literally just this one song, and it plays at all times while navigating the menus, playing stages, using the level editor, and everything else. It's honestly really unique. I don't think there's any other game that does something even sort of like this. It helps that the song itself is also amazingly well composed, never feeling repetitive and having distinct enough sections to feel like a lot of different songs with its instrumentation. According to the composer in an interview with the official PlayStation blog, quote, "It's 75 minutes long because we wanted it to take up an entire CD by itself," which is certainly an admirable goal. It's a beautiful song and is honestly one of the game's standout features. In that interview, they also mentioned that the entire recording was live-streamed. To quote producer Ken Suzuta, "For this project, Suzuki and Sakamoto both suggested broadcasting the sessions live on Ustream, giving users the opportunity to check out the studio and the recording process, making it another part of the game's entertainment. We responded to viewer comments in real time, and when things got frustrating in the studio, viewers would send out support messages and so forth. In a way, we all worked together to get the track completed. It was really great to have all those viewers, including many in America." Unfortunately, I was unable to find any footage of these sessions as the site they were hosted on went down. As we wrap up this game, I wanted to talk a bit about its visual style, because it's a bit odd. The game adopts a sort of papercraft and handmade style for the menus and such, with a new font selection in tow. Now, I think the game looks good, but I don't think it feels very echochrome, you know? These games were known for being minimalist and simplistic, and jumping from echoshift, which added slight colors but still keeping the menus and the game visuals simple, to this game that just adds so much stuff on screen is sort of jarring. The menus go from plain serif text and minimalism to like 2010s word art fonts and visually noisy backgrounds. I'm not saying that it's bad, just a big shift I had noticed in the game's styling. But wrapping things up here, I would say that Echochrome 2 is a very worthy sequel to Echochrome and echoshift. Despite the changes to the style, the core gameplay feels so in line with everything else, and the music is once again incredibly well composed and performed. This game really is also the premier title for the PlayStation Move, in my opinion. A game that just works so perfectly with the controller that it would be hard to play on any other hardware. I love this game, and I really do think you should play it. If you own a PS3, a Move controller, and a PSI camera. Yeah, it's a bit of a higher bar than the other games in the series, but it's totally worth it. So, we've now talked about all the games in the Echochrome series. Echochrome, echoshift, and Echochrome 2. 3 amazing puzzle games that all take cues from one another, but also have their own distinct styles and gameplay mechanics. I would call this the wrap-up section, but there's actually one more game we need to talk about here, that being the Echochrome-themed minigame in PlayStation Home's Bowling Alley. Yeah, I know, it's damn obscure, but I figured it's worth mentioning here so people in the comments don't go, "Hey, but you forgot the PS Home minigame." So here we go. I took advantage of the fan-made PS Home revival, which you can check out at homeheadquarters.net, a project that is archiving PlayStation Home data from before the shutdown. Now, I never used PS Home, so I logged in for the first time, made an avatar, and went down to the Bowling Alley arcade. In the arcade, you can find an assortment of cabinet minigames, including Echochrome. The game takes a minute to load and then shows you a pretty simple menu screen with the logo from the European box art in the sort of hand-drawn, scribbly style. 3 stages are available, and the basic gameplay is pretty simple. All you do is move the cursor with the D-pad and press cross and circle to place holes and jump pads to guide the auto-moving doll into the echoes. Your game ends when you run into one of the other dolls on the stage and your score is tallied. It's really simple, basically a promotional Flash game, but it has a decent gameplay loop, and I could see myself having fun with this if it was a mobile game I could play anywhere, not something I play on the same console as the real full game. Also, another fun thing, when you play in the arcade for the first time, you unlock new costume pieces for your avatar at home, those being a set of gloves, shoes, pants, and a top that make you look like the mannequin dolls from the game. They're actually kinda cute, honestly. So, my final thoughts. I think that Echochrome is a really strong series. It has so much going for it. The design language and production values are amazing for all 3 games. Echochrome is a strong first outing. Echoshift is a really interesting take on the time travel platformer formula, and Echochrome 2 is an entirely unique concept born out of the gimmick of PlayStation Move. The through line being the doll-like mannequin characters is a fascinating way to tie all these games together, even if they're all different genres of puzzle game, and the soundtracks for all of these are really, really good too. I would recommend checking out all 3 of these if you have the time, systems, and know how to get them up and running. After all these months spent making videos, I still can't write a satisfying conclusion, so I'll just do my normal outro here. Thank you so much for watching all the way through this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, share it around. I want to share the love for Echochrome with as many people as I can. And if you want to help me produce more stuff like this, I have a Ko-fi link in the description, because it turned out to be the single most expensive video I have ever produced. Buying copies of all these games was not cheap. And hey, while you're here, why not discuss in the comments what your favorite Japan studio games were? I may or may not be planning a future series on the channel all about that exact topic. Have I outroed well enough? Who knows, but I'll be catching you all on the flip side. Bye-bye.